very warm welcome to this webinar titled The Promotion of Improved Stops Through Market and Gender Approach Experiences in Working with Women's Networks in Commercialization. So it is a big pleasure for us to have you today with us. This is going to be the first of three webinars prepared and organized by the Latin American team. Um, the coming two ones are going to be around business models and microhydro, and the other one, the last one, will be around. Um, I don't remember at the point. Yeah, I think is the first one is about business models, and the second one is about the microhydro, so the technologies on the centralization and energy technologies in rural areas. Um, so it's a pleasure for me to have with me five great speakers, all of them practical action people working in four different countries. We have one speaker from South Asia, Nepal. We're going to have also another one representing Latin America, one in East Africa, and another one also in East Africa, in Sudan specifically. So we are going to have a very, very big, and additionally to another one in Kenya, sorry, Lois. We're going to have like five presentations today, hopefully very enriching, very, we're going to have a fruitful conversation after every single one of them. So there will be a space for you participants to, make questions or, like bring comments and your perceptions and perspectives into the conversations. Hopefully it's going to be participative enough for you to be engaged. Specifically, this webinar comes from originally from or has been supported or has been has been feasible because of the Zayat funding. So the Latin American team a year ago, they secured some funding from the Zayat funding prize, and as a result of that, they were encouraged and they integrated the need for cross offices internal sharing and learning so that different offices and different people within Practical Action could actually learn what others are doing. And so we could actually have best practices being shared across different offices. Today, we are going to, as I said before, we're going to have five different presentations. These five presentations and the organization of the webinar has very much been backed up by also the Energy Change and Vision Hub, which was constituted like 4 months ago, and specifically about or by the sub-hub Gender and Energy, which has worked alongside with the Latin American team in preparing like a high quality internal webinar. So the first one to talk today is Lois Maina. Lois is accompanying us from Kenya. She is Practical Action Gender Advisor. She's based, as I said, in Kenya and working with the IPT, the International Programs team from Practical Action, global level. Lois is gonna talk to us about why is gender equality important to our work, and is basically gonna introduce the topic of gender to be as an important topic for Practical Action, something we take very seriously in the organization, and something we want to push forward and harder than before. And that's the reason why the presentations are also going to have a strong gender and perspective. So just for the sake of time, Lois, yours is the floor. I think you have direct access to your slides, so you can move them as your discretion. So please, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos, and hi, well. So it is indeed my pleasure to start off this webinar, and I think it is one of, as Carlos has said, one of the three that we're going to have, and it's also part of our agenda work, and it's good for us to frame why is this important and why is gender equality important to us as Practical Action, and why are we having this kind of efforts. And so maybe to start off, I would like to just bring our attention to our Practical Actions Global Ambition for 2030. As we all know, Our global ambition is to transform the way technology is used to improve the lives of women and men living in or vulnerable to poverty. And as we think about this global ambition, part of the beliefs that we have as Practical Action is that everyone, irrespective of gender, age, ethnicity, or ability, has basic human rights, including access to adequate standard of living, health, and education. And so we also believe that women and men should actually have the means and freedoms to achieve these rights. And I'm sure, as all of you have been following the SDGs, there is one particular principle of leaving no one behind that is really very important for our work. And so as we think about human rights, and as we think about how to enable both men and women to, to achieve their rights, then gender, our work on gender really becomes very important. We also recognize, of course, that as we look at, addressing the whole aspect of poverty, part of the fundamental causes of poverty is actually unequal gender relations and inequalities that exist. Appreciating that women and girls may not necessarily enjoy the same status and power or access to and control over resources as men and boys. And as we start off the conversation around, our work in gender and energy, I think we'll be hearing from the presenters about some of the challenges that exist in terms of these inequalities. Again, for us to be able to achieve our global ambition, we are working in 4 areas. And in each of these 4 areas, we have identified, what are our goals with relation to gender. And I have highlighted the one on energy, that our goal in this goal area is really that women, men, girls, and boys should enjoy total energy access. And this means energy in the home, in the community, and at work, and to improve their relational well-being in the process. So for each of our goal areas, there is what we are working towards. And I think as we hear from the presenters, we'll be hearing how is our work being able to contribute to this particular goal. Again, I think as Carlos said, gender is one of the very critical aspects of our work, and it is one area that we have been growing in as Practical Action. And I just wanted to point out a number of things that have been happening, just to give us a background, of what really we have been able to achieve and where we are at on this journey. So you will realize that we have, for example, my role as gender advisor. This is a new role within Practical Action. And, we have identified that there is need really to staff our organization so that we can have the relevant capacity to really promote this agenda. And you will see that in some of our country offices, we also have some gender specialists that have been recruited to support this agenda. We also have some gender guidance documents, and I'll be mentioning 2 of them, but we have the gender policy, which basically outlines our commitment as Practical Action in terms of promoting gender equality in all aspects of our work. We also have a global gender group that meets. We have representation from all country offices, and ideally within this global gender group, we are able to discuss and share experiences around our gender work. We also are able to collectively identify agenda, for example, for global advocacy around gender and things like that. So this has been a very instrumental group, and I think some of you who are in this call are members of the group. We are also having a lot of efforts to build our internal capacity on gender. We've been having a lot of workshops and webinars just like this to be able to increase our knowledge and skills around how to better mainstream gender in our work. We also have, the Change Ambition hubs that have been in operation, particularly the one on energy and agriculture. And as Carlos mentioned, for example, in the energy one, there's even a sub-hub on gender and energy. And basically, we are also looking at how can we better integrate gender within these Change Ambition hubs. We also are looking at, some of the countries have developed their own gender strategies. They have some plans and budgets as well. We are also looking at how can we improve both our internal and external communications on gender. We'll be seeing a lot of, like now there's a bit of work we are doing to look at our communications guidelines and ensure that we are gender responsive in terms of how we do our communications. We are also looking at how do we address gender, not just in our programs, but also in our workplace. And there's a global initiative going on with the Global HR Group, looking at our own policies and structures and systems and how best they support our work on gender. And again, even when you look at our leadership in terms of the SLT and the board, gender is really central to the conversations. In fact, this year for the SLT meeting that's happening next month, as well as the board meeting in December, they have a particular focus on gender. And this is, one area that is becoming a great area of commitment for us as an organization. But it's good to mention that, and maybe some of you are aware that we do have our gender policy, and basically this sets out, our commitments to promote gender equality in all our works, and it has, different components of it around how we integrate gender in our programs, how we integrate gender in our policy and advocacy, in our communications, in our own organizational development, and who has the responsibility for this. So I would encourage all of us, to be familiar with our gender policy and also the commitments that we have in that particular document. And maybe also closely related to this is that we have developed some minimum standard documents that basically stipulate some of the things that we want to see in terms of gender within our different goal areas. And I have highlighted here that we have the gender and energy minimum standard document that basically highlights what it is we are aspiring to achieve within our energy programming with relation to gender. And it focuses on a number of areas, for example, on income, on health. It looks at issues about decision making and leadership, on women's time. So again, it also proposes some indicators, some standards and indicators that we can apply within our work, and hopefully we are looking to have this revised as we move along, and maybe this is part of the work that we will do with the gender and energy sub-hub. But just in a nutshell to say that as we have this conversation today, this is part of the efforts to really see how we can strengthen, our gender work as practical action, and really looking forward to hearing what the presenters have to share with us in terms of our, the practical programs and approaches that we are applying, particularly around improved cook stoves. So thank you very much. And maybe, I don't know if there will be any questions. I would be more than happy to answer.
Thank you so much, Lois. It was great to hear you. Great that you were bringing us through the different documents that are available for practical action people to use, and also remind us why we're talking about gender and why is this topic so important, not only just for practical action, but for the whole and at the global as well. I mean, it goes beyond energy. It is something that is directly connected to many of the problems that we can see today in our daily lives. And so it was actually great. Thank you so much. I also want to highlight the minimum standards document as an important document for those who are working on programs and program officers, program managers, people who are indirectly or directly tackling or aiming to tackle the gender perspective as an important and relevant document that helps us standardizing and having or bringing a step forward our approach and our work with gender. So I strongly recommend you to use it. Yeah, as you also highlighted the GGG, the Global Gender Group. Anybody interested in joining the group is more than welcome. Lois is your reference person, so please talk to her about that if you're interested. We will be very happy having you there as well. And the same applies for the sub-hubs within the Energy Change Ambition Hub. And it doesn't require you like a tons amount of time, but it's more about getting the news and contact with your colleagues and being part of different processes that I think is very enriching for any of you if you are not part of any of the sub-hubs that are actually or currently ongoing. So we have, I think we had one question around, maybe Lois, you can answer one of the questions that I've seen in the chat so far, which is about the gender pay gaps. I don't know if is there anything you can talk to us about that. I didn't see any other question. The chat is very, very small, so I'm trying to manage it. Yeah, but maybe you could talk a little bit about the gender pay gaps if you think it is.
Yeah, so the gender pay gap is one of the exciting initiatives that we have embarked on as Practical Action. As you know, there is some regulation for all UK-based organizations of a certain size that are supposed to, report on their gender pay gap data. I understand that we are not yet required to do so, but we have decided to do so as Practical Action. And so, led by our HR colleagues in the UK particularly, they have undertaken some pay gap analysis, and there is data available both for the UK but also for the country offices. And I think there's been a plan to disseminate this data and also to try and analyze it to understand how well are we doing there. Of course, different countries are at different levels, but then it is also helping us to understand what else we need to do to ensure that we have gender balance in our positions, but also that our staff are actually equitably remunerated. So this is a piece of work that is ongoing. I think we started the first analysis last year. We've done some for this year, and I think there's a plan to see how to also strengthen it. There's been a bit of feedback coming from staff, at least for the countries where this has been disseminated, and I think there's also some ongoing conversation about how we can strengthen this particular initiative so that it helps us to grow as an organization and to be able to ensure that we have equitable policies in terms of our positions as well as our remuneration.
To talk about. Thank you so much, Lois. Okay, thank you so much for your presentation, Lois. I think it's time to move forward. The next presentation is for Min Vikran, our colleague in Nepal. Min, I hope you can, or you're online with us. Janina is going to give you a connection so that you can talk meantime program you're going to present in, if you don't mind. So Min is or has been working for an NDEF based program, paid or funded by DFID and GIZ for the last 5 years. The program title is Result-Based Financing for Sustainable Clean Stocks Markets in Nepal. And it started in October 2014. So already approximately 20,000 cooktops have been disseminated under the project. It seems like a very successful program that worth being disseminated. So, Min, yours is the floor. I hope you can or you have access to the microphone. And thank you so much for being with us.
Okay, thank you very much, Carlos. Hello, everybody. I am Min Vikram Malla from Nepal office. It's my great pleasure to get an opportunity to share you about the result-based financing project on cook stove that we are implementing since 2014 with funding support of DFID via GIZ INDEF. First, I want to highlight about the background. In Nepal, majority of households are dependent on solid biomass fuel for cooking energy. Solid biomass fuel is the most polluting fuel, which lies at the bottom of energy ladder. When it is burnt with inefficient traditional stoves, it emits very high air pollution, which is harmful for health and environment. Annually, more than 22,000 persons, mainly women and children, died prematurely due to it. a significant time, around 100 days per year per family is spent for field collection and processing. Women are most vulnerable to it, to the air pollution generated from it and drudgery related to field collection and processing. It is a big environmental health problem in Nepal. Considering this, Nepal government has given top priority to it and made commitment to providing clean cooking solution for all. In this background, we started this project in 2014 with the funding support of DFID via GIZ INDEP. Currently, we are running in 4th year. The project aims to develop sustainable market of improved cook stove by strengthening private sector led clean cook stove market and contribute to minimize respiratory health problems in rural Nepal. We have co-financing from our office as well. Key features of the project include it is a result-based financing project. Instead of conventional upfront grant funding support, here the project provides money to the private sectors for the delivery of the results. The private companies take up initiative for developing cook stove market and they get money paid by the project for their activities after verification of the results. So this is different than the conventional grant support project. In this project, we are using participatory market system development approach to develop cook stove market. The project provides result-based incentive and capacity building support to the key market players. Similarly, we also help to create market system actors and develop strong linkages between the market actors. In this way, we have supported to create vibrant market of clean cook stove in Nepal. In this project, two main key market players get result-based incentive from the project. The cook stove distributor get RBF incentive, result-based incentive for taking risks and making upfront investment and to provide discount to users and do marketing and documentation. Similarly, the cooperatives, the microfinance institutes, they get result-based incentive for bearing their management cost, documentation cost, and also promotional cost. And also they get incentive for creating credit lines for cook stoves. Also they get incentive to provide soft loan to purchase cook stoves. The RBF incentive have been set at annual decreasing rate. The incentive the project provides decreases annually and make it zero at the end of the project for the smooth exit of the project. This is another feature of this project. We have listed more than 16 types of cook stove to give choices to the consumers as per their need and capacity. We have natural draft stoves, forced draft stoves, fixed type wood stoves, and even electric induction cook stove. The customers can make choice as per their need and capacity. Another features of this strong feature of this result based financing project is verification. Verification is very strong in this project. We have two types of verification. One is done by NGO immediately as and when required basis after the result creation, and after the verification by the NGO, our fund manager, the result based financing fund manager, we have given it to a bank to manage the fund, and the responsibility to the bank. They releases 95% of the incentive to the private sectors and to the cooperatives. And another verification is done at the end of the financial year by third party verifier. After the third party verification, balance remaining 5% deposited money is released. Now I want to talk about achievements and impacts of the project. The project has been very much successful to create jobs in different layers of the cook stove market system. If you see here, the project in the 4-year project period, it has created jobs for 141 persons. Among them, 30% are women. If you see here, the women participation at the bottom layer, as the worker, as the consumer, is very satisfactory. Like the users, we have been reached to 20. We have the project has helped to sell more than 20,500 stoves. All the beneficiary are women cook, the main beneficiary, and also the marketing agent. If you see marketing agent and retailers, 50% are women. But if you see the at the top level, as the manufacturer, as the importer, the number is quite low. But overall, the number is 30%. As the project has no targeted support package for women entrepreneurship promotion, we can say that this level of engagement is quite satisfactory. With the engagement of women in market system, it has created many positive benefits. It has increased self-reliance and confidence of the women, mainly the last mile cook stove distributors. They have become role models to motivate other women, and we have found that they are very good communicators and good in personal relation and very successful for marketing, and they are having good income from this engagement, and they are able to invest in their children's education and can afford better food, so having better health and work productively. And in user side, as I mentioned earlier, in Nepal, most of the cooking is done by women, and they are heavily benefited from the improved cook stove. There has been significant health benefits leading to reduction in health costs and saving in days lost due to ill health. There has been significant fuel saving with the improved cook stove, which has led to time saving in firewood collection and drudgery reduction. And also there is significant cooking time savings. They are using the save time to their children, their child care, and to involve in other productive activities and other group activities. And other benefits include their kitchen are more cleaner and cooking vessels get less dirty. Here is one case study from a remote village from rural Nepal. You see here, she is Sona Gurung. She says that after living all her life in a smoke-filled house, finally she feels her days of suffering are over with this smoke wood support which was provided by the project. She further says that she might not live longer to enjoy the smoke-free life, but her coming generation will benefit from it, and she is glad that her life is better now. Now I want to share learnings of the project from a gender perspective. You can see here the women's involvement in different layers of the market system as the manufacturer, importer, distributor, manufacturing job, marketing agent, in cooperatives as consumer. Here you see the figure, their involvement. As I mentioned earlier, women involvement at the bottom of pyramid of the cook stove market system is high, but very low at the top. There are many socio-cultural, economic, physical, technical, skill-related, and practical barriers for this outcome, which I listed here. I do not want to go in detail about the barriers. We need to overcome these barriers to increase women participation in cook stove business. One of the interesting point to consider is that there is a very good response from women groups and cooperatives, which we need to capitalize further. There is good adoption by the cooperative members and women group members, which you can see in their involvement figures also here in the table. In conclusion, this result-based financing facility is very effective for making the private sector more accountable and delivering greater value for money by shifting the focus from inputs to results. Involvement of women as the worker and consumer is at satisfactory level, but their involvement as the owner of enterprise is not. There is need of targeted capacity building and incubation support packages to enable women to take greater role in ICS and fuel market system. which is not in this result-based financing project. This is general neutral on supporting, making support to market system actors. ICS, the improved cookie stove, are still push products in Nepal. Adequate support packages should be provided to boost its demand. To attract women as investor of ICS enterprises, it is very important. Entrepreneurship needs special skills and interest. Adequate care should be taken while identifying and motivating specific women to become entrepreneurs, cookie stove entrepreneurs. Targeted financing for women entrepreneurs together with technical support should be provided. Such financing should be provided without collateral, based on business plan and group guarantees. Group investment by women should be encouraged. It may help them to establish new businesses more effectively with minimized risk. Adoption of, as I mentioned earlier, adoption of cookie stove is significantly higher among women groups, mainly by the women cooperative members. Need to work with such women groups, cooperatives to scale efforts, build capacity and provide a support system. Need to encourage joint cookie stove market development initiative for women and men and utilize comparative advantages. Women were found very effective on marketing. Another very important finding, the learning is that need to encourage decentralization of cookie stove manufacturing and fuel supply to have increased women involvement and benefit them from this business. These are a few glimpses of the project. With this, I finish my presentation here. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Min. It was a great.
Any question?
Thank you so much, Min. Can you hear me now, Min? Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It was great. We have lots of questions actually, which is great. I tried to get all of them on board. I don't think we're going to have time at this point to answer all the questions. Maybe one of the benefits of being or acting as moderator is that you can make your question the first. No, I'm just kidding. But I think there are a couple of questions that have been echoing from the different participants. One of which is about one is around that very it's not surprising, but it is kind of bad figure around the number of manufacturers, importers, distributors, women distributors, women importers, women manufacturers. You gave reasons like barriers why this is happening. But in your position, if you could actually have a similar program or design a program from scratch again, what would you introduce or include in your program that would change that dramatically? I mean, which ones would be the first or second more prioritized actions to tackle the current lack of manufacturers or importers or distributors, like female ones? On your perception, which ones would they be?
Currently also we have requested our donor for adjustment, looking the trend, looking the demand trend. Demand is a big challenge. Still, you know, as I mentioned, the cookie stove is a push product. We need to push, we need to create awareness. People, because it has many social benefit, environmental benefit, health benefit, but there is no direct financial benefit. So creating demand is a challenge. So if we want to promote women entrepreneurs, we need to ensure about the demand. So we need to invest on marketing promotion. We need to, in this project, we are lacking that we don't have adequate fund to do marketing at different level. Marketing and to create awareness at we need to even create at the higher level to very at the customer level also different types of marketing, and this is required very the marketing is very important. We need to invest for it. Another is capacity building also, various level of capacity building, and also decentralization of the production. These are the important decentralization of cookie stopper. These are important things we need to do to encourage women entrepreneurship and to promote cookie stop.
So I'm happy to say that we have where the capacitating and providing mentoring to women entrepreneurs has been part of the core part of the program. So we're going to have some of these questions answered in the coming presentations. So I think we can park this question at the moment. There are a couple of questions around what makes a results-based finance so special. So what's the difference between having a results-based finance program from a kind of a traditional program?
Result-based, as I mentioned in my presentation also, this is the payment, the incentive is made after the creation of the results, after the result creation. So the private sector, they are more responsible, they are more accountable, and things are very transparent, and there is a strong verification process which helps to maintain quality and maintain transparency and make the private sector more accountable. This is the difference between the conventional the grant support and the result-based support.
Thank you, Min. One or a couple of last questions. One is around impacts. So you've been showing us some impacts that you were in. So what are the indicators that you think are most prominent or most relevant in such a program, specifically from the gender's perspective? And what lessons you think you have learned across or around the last 3 to 4 years in terms of measuring impacts?
Currently, we are just looking the number of women's involvement in this cookie store market system. As a users, there are lots of benefits, but as their involvement in market system, in the value chain of this cookie store, still it is not at satisfactory level, and just involvement as a market system actors is not adequate. We want to make them owner of the business, owner of the enterprise, where we need to focus more whether they are owner of the enterprise or not, and whether they are benefiting from this business or not. These are the two main indicators we need to look after.
Thank you, Min. And the last question, yes, for the sake of the time, you've been talking about the markets, cookstops markets. I personally found it very interesting. You also mentioned the fact that the program was offered to companies that were actually benefiting from the results-based finance. They were offering discounts to users and some other incentives. So how well are we on track? How well are we on track to have a sustainable market once the program is over? And how is it unlocking market potential? So how this initiative is unlocking new market potentials that we didn't have before the program came?
After the launch of this project, we had lots of problem. So we don't say that we have been very much successful, but one thing that we are proud is that we have created many market system actors. There we have created many players, not only in the supply chain, in the support services also, and also we have contributed some level at the policy level also, at the enabling environment level also. So we can say that the project has created adequate number of market players. When we started, there was no any manufacturing Nepali company, but after this project, now we have three manufacturing company. There are import companies. There are distributor at the very local level, retailers, marketing agents, even the financing institutions. They are ready to provide loan to Quickstop. These are the success. Still we targeted number, but creating the market players, the project has been successful.
Thank you so much for your presentation and for being with us. Just for the sake of time, there are other questions. I've been noting them all, but we are going to jump into the next presentation. Benito's presentation is going to be the second one. Guys, if by the end of the presentation you still have the same questions, don't doubt in writing down them in the chat area. Okay, so I noted them, but there may be some that I unintentionally forgot. So write them back again after the end of the presentation for me, specifically for me, or as general, okay, for the speakers. So I think the next one is Benito. I know that Janina, you have already uploaded the presentation. Benito is currently going to be talking in Spanish, but that's not going to be difficult for us because we have an interpreter. So Leila is the interpreter today. She's going to be translating Spanish into English for us to understand what Benito is going to talk about, and I'm going to be unmuted. Okay, so I think Leila, yours is the floor, please.
For being in this webinar. The experience that I'm going to present to you is related to 3 projects that started since 2015. 2 projects related to the demand approach in parallel, and we had the implementation of the demand or supply approach with the finances or results, based results. Okay, first of all, I wanted to tell you that, as we all know, actually there is a big problem related to the conditions in which families in the rural areas particularly use wood or fuels, and it's detrimental for their health. So the global concern, according to the data that we have, there are annually millions of women and children who die prematurely. With this project, or this type of projects, we want to change the conditions. As you can see, we have smoky environments, and we want to improve their conditions through the technologies that answers to the needs of the population. When we started this intervention, we mapped the scenario, how we were developing these projects. And we see that actually decades ago, the state, through programs and projects, had been implementing cookstoves at different levels. Also, some NGOs had some projects with the particularity that these projects had been as donors. It's that invented technologies. And so we were in a scenario where making a dynamic market had a big barrier that related to the cultural aspect, the family behaviors. And we also had some private initiatives from companies, entrepreneurs that had been placing cookstoves in the market, but quite deficiently. You know, they put it as a market product. If we look at the value chain was to short families that obtained these cookstoves through the local governments. They would buy them from some entrepreneurs that would go and sell them massively. They were ready to sell. And with these interventions, we had the cooperatives, producer organizations that allow them to buy more directly this type of cookstoves. And in some cases, some families would buy directly this type of technology. As for suppliers, we had some material providers, local companies, and for the development and transparency of this technology in our country, with the support of NGOs mainly, and the National Training Service for Construction Industry developed a national standard to certify these cookstoves. NGOs have worked a lot related to the technical assistance. We had some work on this, and the research related to the market, it was still missing. Related to financing, we had not registered so far experiences for credits for cookstoves. They had credits for other types of technologies like solar water heaters, but not cookstoves. Some critical points in this value chain. Entrepreneurs didn't have or don't have still all the information and enough capital. Like the decorated cookstoves usually do not comply with the demands of the market related to contaminations for cooperatives, fair trade, or the organic certifications, because they were demanding technologies that will answer to these technical criteria, and they were on the field that these type of technologies were not implemented. The improved cookstoves projects, as I said, usually just give away the technology, and this had a large impact in the population, because in the culture of the rural people, they had the idea that this technology is a technology that needs to be given away, that the state or the NGO needs to give it as a gift. So we had to work strongly in this market. The women's participation as technology user in the value chain, the women's participation was just a user. She was not part of it, actually. So, as part of the service providers, they were absent. They didn't provide services or technical assistance. Within this context, to us, it has been very important to establish intervention strategies, and one of these strategies has been to facilitate to the demand the access for financing. Another strategy was to promote what is the value of these improved cookstoves, that is why having an improved cookstove, and also more capacity building or strengthening of the capacities, local capacities, putting an emphasis on women as our target audience, so they are not jesters. As for the financing, we identified as a barrier to dynamize the market. That is, there is a demand that has been developed through these projects and offer, but at the moment the family decides to buy this technology, they don't have enough money to purchase it. They don't have the cash. So here we have the opportunity or the possibility of implementing microcredits to obtain an improved cookstove. At the beginning, we implemented funds in 3 cooperatives, 2 producers cooperatives, and we're going to use a fund that they had for healthy households, and other cooperatives with their family and health fund, and another savings and credit cooperatives that approved as a credit product the Mi Cocina Fund or My Cookstove Fund. With these cooperatives is that we began to commercialize the cookstoves in the context that I told you about, where people were used to just receive the cookstoves as a donation, as a gift. As we all know, usually the improved cookstove projects have been guided to address family or women's needs, and probably are centered actually towards women as users. And this has strengthened this idea in women as a complement of man, which is a very strong cultural aspect in Peru as well. And it is usually linked to the domestic or household work. And now this is changed, where they're trying to do some gender approach for development, where women have a different role. And on this framework, we worked at this framework within the projects to raise awareness among women as to what are the advantages, benefits, if they have access to this technology. And this has allowed us to inform a group or a set of groups of women, 3,500 women who finally had access to this information. But also, it's been very important to work with men. This awareness for men and not just women, and this process to raise awareness, it wants to highlight the need of this technology, highlight the benefits from this technology, and the technology alternatives that we have, the options that the market can offer, and also the way they can acquire this technology. And for that, we have the family members. As a part of the capacity building or technical skills building, it's important to train both men and women and teach them how to install this improved cookstove, because the first part of the project was guided to implement just the cookstove, so where we had to build, we have to set up the whole structure, and women received a training in these activities so they could become installers, and they would make $24 for each installation, the same as men. We needed to mention that originally the number was reduced. I mean, the women's participation number was reduced in this first stage, but little by little they have become more involved. Women as sales promoters, and when to strengthening the offer. As I said, in parallel to this, at the end of 2015, we had an intervention under the RBS technology that also and something important in this work was to include this mounted improved cookstoves in the market, and we had entrepreneurs that were part of this, and they were able to improve even the technology and put it in the market with a different characteristic from the prior. And we have the boom of these portable cookstoves. Within this concept, an opportunity came up for women as sales promoters. Women has per se, and you could say the technology or the cook stove, it's more linked to women, let's say, or it's more endearing for them, and it makes it easier for women to reach other women, and so they convince them. And they convince them that they and the families should acquire this type of cook stoves. And this allows us, because we have a connection between the improved cook stove producers, the sales promoters, the thermal energy, and also credit promoters or sales promoters or agencies that have the direct contact with the end users or the families that are part of the cooperatives that will become end users. And somehow that has been how women have become part of the value chain, and they have become as an actor in this value chain, because at the beginning they were outside of the chain because entrepreneurs were our installers were only men. 13 cooperatives, also producers cooperatives, and 2 credit and savings cooperatives have achieved, along with the women's participation as microcredits promoters, to place 1,155 microcredits. And at the beginning of 2018, they have moved about over 600,000 soles, that it's about $194,000 US dollars in credit products. It's been important, the role of savings and credit cooperatives to achieve or to do this work. In the market dynamics, these credits, these small loans, are very little attractive for traditional banking, because we are only talking about $108 or $200 credits. So this has a high cost for the banking, and it's not attractive. As I say, it wouldn't work to go encourage or market the type of work with the regular banking. And that's when we have the savings and credit cooperatives, because these cooperatives require evidence of a social work as part of the cooperative model. And obviously This is part of their principle that it's mutual aid, education to markets, which is a very interesting and important scenario that we can use to promote this type of work. The producers' cooperatives, most of them have acquired cooperative credits given by the COPAC, that it's the savings and credit cooperatives, to purchase the improved stoves. That is, some families that go to these savings and credit cooperatives, they acquire their personal loan, they purchase the stove, and then other families get together as producers cooperatives and go as a group, and they requested as a cooperative loan to the savings and credit cooperatives. Some initial results between 2015 and 2018 is that we have commercialized 4,600 improved stoves. 99% of these are portable stoves. 3,100 stoves under a demand approach in order to try to more dynamic the stove market. Starting from families, training, raising awareness, and connect them with the entrepreneurs, and 1,500 on the RBF approach. And that tries to strengthen the entrepreneur, improve technology, and then sell them. 5 manufacturers of improved cook stoves had strengthened the distribution chain. Of 19 entrepreneurships in marketing portable stoves, 15 were driven by women. Most of them, the sales in the cooperatives, in producers associations, so we were able to contribute in this sense to reduce the emission of greenhouse effect gases. We still have some challenges ahead. One of the main challenges is reducing the price of these stoves in the market. So we still need to do some technology innovation to strengthen the value chain related to commercialization, to increase women's participations in the value chain. And those were the main challenges that still remain for us. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Benito, and thank you so much, Leila, for the translation.
Muchas gracias, Benito.
So I think that there's been a lot of also a lot of data, a lot of figures and ideas that have been thrown into the presentation. Thank you so much. I think we have still some time, like a couple for some quiz. Anybody having some questions in for Benito? I particularly, we have one question. Just give me a sec. Yeah, so we have a question around microcredit via cooperatives. Does this change household decision-making roles between women and men? Does working through cooperatives help ensure at least 50% of recipients of microcredit are women? So what's the actual impact of working through cooperatives, which I think also is quite a distinctive kind of element in for Latin America. Please.
La pregunta, Ok, la pregunta dice, si es que los que son los microcréditos vía cooperativas ha mejorado los roles en la toma de decisiones que existen entre hombres y mujeres en la casa, que si trabajar con las cooperativas ha llegado a asegurar que por lo menos 50% de los que reciben los microcréditos sean mujeres. Sí. The change in role and decision making is a process that is not that easy. In the short period of time of a project, it will be very difficult to change a structure that has been there for several years. We're talking about the people's culture. We have improved it, yes, because women have participated in the decision-making process to acquire the cook stove. And another thing is that the producers' cooperatives have inside women organizations that have been promoting several activities like the promotion of cook stoves and other activities like female coffee and a set of activities and entrepreneurships that want women to become more involved, and in this way we are moving towards more participation in the decision making.
Okay, thank you, Benito. Very clear. Myself is it is around you mentioned that you were working with results-based finance, but also with there were different approaches. I would be interested to know which one has been more effective, and what's the difference between that you felt there were different, if there were differences between how the market has responded depending on the kind of approach that you've been using. Yeah.
Our point of view as a work team, it's been much more effective to work from the demand approach. The results-based financing contributes to improve the technology, or has contributed in the Peruvian experience to improve the technology, to strengthen the production. However, if we talk about sales or retail sales or individual sales, the commercialization, then it becomes quite complicated because the manufacturers do not necessarily have the capacity of going out and sell. They are focused on just producing, and they just need the other link of the value chain is becomes stronger. That will be the commercialization, and that's where the opportunity has occurred to increase women's participation and become that part of that link, because they are now sales promoters and they generate an extra income because so they sell the stoves. But in general, like reaching to people to expand the sales, it's been much more effective for experience the approach, the demand approach.
Okay, thank you so much, Benito. There is another question coming from.
Muchas gracias, Benito. Hay otra pregunta.
There's another question coming from the UK. What are the indicators that you guys are using to measure the differences or the change in the patterns and the cultural changes, and the changes that you were talking before about the long-term changes? So what are the indicators that you're using currently for identifying these gender-based changes or these changes in gender in the gender roles?
And something that we still need to work a lot is to include women in the value chain. As I said at the beginning, before the improved cookstoves projects had characteristics that these stoves were just given to families, but only saw women as users of these technologies, and were purchased. The projects would purchase them in mass to the project. That is, the local government will buy, let's say, 1,000 stoves. They will give it to 1,000 families, and women would just receive, and the family would receive the cook stove. And in basic scenario, they would be trained on how to use this technology. But with this experience, our experience, now women are part of the commercialization process. They are sales promoters, they are credit promoters, which I think it's a progress in itself. It is a scenario that it was men only.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Benito, for your presentation. It's been great to hear what the Latin American team is doing on the space of cook stoves and women. So now we are, and thank you, Leila, for the translation. It was great to have that translation in place. Thank you so much. So into our experience in Sudan, I hope Samah, you are ready. Samah Omer, she is the person in charge of the program in Sudan, program that has been that started like in 28, so has been running for over the last 9 years, 8 to 9 years. Hopefully, I'm right with that. The program title is Low Smoke Stoves Project. So we're very happy to have you, Samah, with us. I know that you are on the field, so thank you so much for having the time to share the experience with us. Yours is the floor, please. Go ahead. Samah, are you there? I know that you were before. I don't know if you're still with us. Can you, maybe you can, if you don't have data access, you can chat and tell us if you're still there. Uh, Please. Okay, it seems like Sama is apparently not connected at this moment. Maybe Janina, can you upload Lydia's presentation meantime, and we give Sama some. Oh, Sama, you are online apparently. But we cannot hear you. Um, Maybe Janina, can you help Sama connect and use the program to connect and talk to us? I don't know if you have the access to the speaker. Maybe while we solve the technical problem with Sama, maybe we can jump into Lydia's presentation. So that gives Sama some time to operativize her sound system. I don't know what's happening. Maybe, yeah, Janina, Sama is not being added as a presenter or speaker. So that's probably the reason. not able. Let's try that for the last time. Samah, can you talk now? Doesn't look like we are listening your voice or hearing your voice. Janina, are we sure she's connected as a speaker? Okay, maybe for the interest, on the interest of time, yeah, maybe on the interest of time, Janina, please let's upload Lydia's presentation meantime, and let's start with Lydia's presentation while we can solve or sort out the problems with Samah. Is that okay? Okay. So due to the technical problems, let's jump straight onto the Lydia's presentation. So very quickly, just to say that Lydia Muchiri, she is the program manager of the WEEK program, Women in Energy Enterprises, WEEK project in Kenya, where from 2014 to 2017, and together with other partners, the program has had a very highly successfully the delivery rates and impact in Kenya. So we're very happy that you, Lydia, are with us today. You can bring us through the presentation. So yours is the floor, and thanks a lot again for having you with us today.
Thank you very much, Carlos, for the introduction, and hello, everyone. I'm using Lois's computer. A little about the energy situation in Kenya, which is what prompted us to design a project to address the many challenges that Kenyan households have with regard to accessing energy, both for cooking and for lighting. 64% of the Kenyan population has no access to electricity, while over 80% of Kenyans actually rely on biomass as a primary source of cooking and heating fuel, with firewood contributing over 68% and charcoal over 13%. 87% of the rural population uses firewood for cooking, while 82% of the urban population uses charcoal for cooking. According to the World Health Organization, over 16,500 Kenyans die annually, and this has direct impact on the health of over 14 million or close to 15 million Kenyans, with the majority being children and women as a result of the smoky fires and use of kerosene in the household. In designing the Women in Energy Enterprises project, we adopted the Women Economic Empowerment approach. As we heard from Lois earlier, energy has the potential to address the gender equality issues. It has a potential to reduce poverty and also to enable women to participate in economic development in the country. sorry. The project, the WIC project, was implemented in 7 counties in the country. It was implemented in partnership with one partner. The objectives of the project, the main objective was actually just to strengthen the capacity of women energy entrepreneurs to participate effectively and benefit from energy markets, not just as users, but also as actors. Having implemented projects supporting both men and women entrepreneurs previously, we realized that women's businesses were not performing well, and even after the interventions, their businesses would either completely, fail after we've left, the grounds, or they would continue earning very minimal incomes. And so the project was actually designed deliberately to address the many challenges that we realize that women face. And specifically, we wanted to strengthen a sustainable market, energy market, for 730 women energy entrepreneurs, while at the same time lobbying and advocating for adoption of women economic empowerment approaches in planning and delivering energy services at all levels. It was a 3-year project with 2 different components. The component that was supporting capacity building for women energy entrepreneurs, and the component that was using lessons from the WIC project, or the results from the working with women entrepreneurs to advocate, to create awareness among stakeholders. We had a budget of over 710,000 for the capacity building component and 180 for the advocacy component from Energia International and from Well Wishers, with support from the UK office. So the interventions that we implemented to support gender equity included supporting women entrepreneurs in the solar fuel briquettes and improved cook-stove value chains, in line with the energy gender target of total energy access, where women are supported to be actors, and they help to ensure that those at the grassroots actually are able to access energy, not just for cooking, but also for lighting, as well as alternative fuels for cooking, briquettes, while also earning incomes or being empowered economically. So the 2 components were run concurrently. So our targets were to work with 730 women entrepreneurs so that they achieve financial growth, they have the capacity, business capacity, and the business grow. We targeted to reach over 360 consumers including households as well as institutions. It was also anticipated that the women entrepreneurs would create employment opportunities for up to 450 men and women in their businesses, whether full-time or part-time. So our business model mainly focused on recruiting the women entrepreneurs, building their technical and business development skills. We incorporated aspects of agency-based empowerment training as well as self-leadership in the technical and business development training. Women were trained on technology to demystify, for example, products like solar, lanterns. They were also equipped with skills in briquetting fuel briquette production, cook stoves production, and all that. In addition to that, there was personalized mentorship for each of the entrepreneurs to ensure that the gaps that had been noted at the start during the recruitment were addressed. In addition to this, one of the main challenge that we had noted before was that women had major challenges accessing business capital. In fact, even with a guarantee fund, our microfinance institutions were not able to grant any loans to the women because of the very stringent requirements. So we looked at ways of strengthening the existing networks of women, referred to as village savings and loaning associations, through capital injection, increasing their capacity to lend to more members and lend in larger amounts. At the same time, we supported them with the market development, equipping them with skills to carry out marketing campaigns so that they're able to reach as many customers as possible, so that they're able to gain confidence to overcome the lack of confidence to go out and actually market the products. On the other hand, and alongside this, the advocacy component focused on lobbying and advocating for adoption of women economic empowerment approaches, specifically around the preparation of the Sustainable Energy for All action plans and action agenda and investment prospectus at all levels, because Kenya has adopted into the SE for All initiative, and the government was willing to work with us to ensure that there were clear gender objectives in the policy documents to ensure that energy benefited both men and women. And this also came along with a campaign, a national campaign to create awareness. At the same time, lessons from the field or case studies from the work we were doing with the women were used to lobby, not just at the national level, but with project partners at the international level for adoption of women economic empowerment approaches. So our achievements by the end of the project, while we had targeted to work with 730 women, by the end of the project, we had 700 women. This means that we had to start with a higher number, over 800. There were dropouts, but in the end, 700 remained with the project. The 700 women energy entrepreneurs were able to reach over 1.5 million beneficiaries. And in the end, they created jobs, some permanent and others on an on and off basis for over 450 men and women. In terms of the numbers of improved cook stoves and other products that were sold, whether it was through to retailers, those who bought the stoves and retailed them, or those who actually sold the stoves at wholesale, we had over 166,000 of the complete types of stoves. Another category over 100. We had over 10,600 solar products sold by the women and over 405,000 kilograms of briquettes sold by the end of the project. I mentioned again that we reached over 1.5 million beneficiaries with these products and services. Sorry. We have a few success stories to share, or case studies. These case studies will demonstrate that beyond the earnings or increased earnings, some of the entrepreneurs were able to actually gain control and were able to begin to gain recognition from their spouses. Like in the case of Bibiana, who says that for her, empowerment means that she can buy, for example, good skin lotion. She has control over the money that she makes. She knows where it's going. She can pay the spouse to support her, or when he supports her in her business, and she's able to support her grandchildren to go to school. Another entrepreneur got the opportunity to get into briquetting business and also selling solar products, because the husband lost the job, and being a woman entrepreneur enabled her to pay school fees for her children, who often dropped out of school and remained at home for long periods. Another entrepreneur Another entrepreneur was able to actually find a way of earning an income, marketing solar systems, was even able to build a house and continue taking care of her family, which she would not have been able to do if she hadn't got the opportunity to become an entrepreneur. At the user level, for those who adopted the use of solar home systems completely, they were able to save 100%. There was reported savings in fuel consumption. For those using improved cook stoves, there were cash savings for those who adopted fuel briquettes, up to 30% instead of using charcoal, and there was reported reduced drudgery, as well as time spent collecting firewood, and also reduction in time spent cooking because of use of improved cook stoves. The advocacy component was successful in mainstreaming gender in the Sustainable Energy for All outcome documents, and awareness was created for over 2 million people who are sensitized on the need to mainstream gender in energy planning. The campaign on women economic empowerment was not done by the practical action only, but through a partnership where partners signed in and supported the process. The advocacy work used social media to a great extent, which required that we train media personalities on gender reporting, gender sensitive reporting, so that they could support the project. Print media was a major ally of the project. So what have we learned after the implementation of the project? That women are actually well suited as point of sale experts, because they are the users of energy and they have experience, and this makes them very good sales persons. That women are able to leverage the existing networks to promote adoption of new technologies and use their first-hand experiences in marketing solutions. That we need to build interventions that draw on the capacity of the groups to organize, not focusing only on service delivery, but also looking at how we can help them to improve their livelihoods. That the village savings and loaning associations, which are the dominant forms of networks in Kenya, provide grounds for entrepreneurs to learn how to manage their savings as well as credit. This was actually reported by from the impact assessment by 81% of the women entrepreneurs. They found that very useful. In terms of the interventions that we implemented, mentorship was rated as the most effective intervention by the women entrepreneurs. There was evidence of positive empowerment, with women reporting increased self-confidence and participating more in decision-making at the household level. We also learned that it's really important that during implementation and based on the lessons that we learned, that we changed strategy midway, especially to address the issue of access to finance. The project had to drop the guarantee fund model and adopt what we call the local fund administrator village saving and loan model as an alternative financing model for women entrepreneurs. And of course, the whole issue of being very sensitive to women's triple role, that we need to be organizing activities in consultation if we want them to participate effectively, and that there was value in combining capacity building interventions with the advocacy component, building evidence for advocacy in order to ensure sustainability of our interventions in the longer term. And thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Lydia. It was a great presentation. We are a little bit behind the time schedule for today's webinar, but nevertheless, I think it is worth having some space for questions. Besides the figures that you were presenting, which are quite impressive, thank you for also bringing numbers and figures to the presentation. Is really useful for us to get, like an idea of the scale of the program. I would say like the two very particular stamps from the program are around the advocacy element, but also the very dedicated gender approach, specifically for entrepreneurs. I think that's very, very, very particular, very specific, very tailored to that very important part of the market. Perhaps a question from my side. It's not a question, but it's maybe for the audience. It'd be good to know if you could actually provide us with a very quick kind of explanation of how these agency-based empowerment and leadership trainings were done. So what were the resources that you had into consideration, and how could you tell us a little bit more about these kind of trainings in detail? And the second question from my side is, which ones were the main obstacles to find 700 or 800 women who were, keen and prepared to do that? I guess it is not easy to find the entrepreneurs for this space. So tell us more a little bit about the obstacles that you found in the beginning.
Okay. The obstacles with regard to recruitment of women to join the project were mainly with regard to even finding where these women entrepreneurs are. So what we did was to first use our networks or partnerships. We visited institutions that we know, organizations that we know work with, have done some work with women energy entrepreneurs. And I think most of them were able to provide us with the contacts of some of the entrepreneurs that they had worked with. And then from there, we used the entrepreneurs that we were able to mobilize from our networks to inform others about the opportunity. And we also had a good number of entrepreneurs from our previous projects with briquetting work. Others we got through support from our partner, who was also working with women energy entrepreneurs and cookstoves. And I think word of mouth from the entrepreneurs also really helped us to reach others. With regard to agency-based empowerment training, we had realized, as I mentioned before, that women had major challenges. Even when you trained them together with men, you know, they were the last to actually apply the skills after the training. And we followed up to find out why, and we realized that as someone is actually even asking that they have a lot that they have to handle. Sometimes we are in the training and they're thinking about their children and what they are going to eat. And their businesses were mainly part-time. And we felt that it was important that we find a way of getting the women to actually realize the potential that lies in becoming an energy entrepreneur, rather than, you know, taking it as a part-time business that you do when you need a few hundred Kenya shillings to buy sugar. And the opportunity came when the GACC, Global Alliance for Clean Cookstoves, advertised for a training for trainers on agency-based empowerment, which we had heard of during a conference that they'd organized in Kenya. And 2 of our staff participated in the training. And while it is a really packed module, we looked at what is it that would actually address the barriers that we've been facing with the women. What is it that we need to adopt from the, you know, many topics? So we came up with about 10 or so topics that we felt would definitely address the barrier around self-confidence, barrier around being able to express oneself, and what would help them to understand the potential that lies in their investing more time in the business. And so we changed the training program to incorporate 2 additional days. I think this was, it was really important that our funder agrees to this change of strategy, and Najia were more than willing to allow us to include additional topics, and even provided for us a bit more funding when we ran out of funding after incorporating additional days, training days.
Thank you much, Lydia. It's a fantastic answer. I think well, we have a couple of other questions, but just for the interest of time, well, maybe a quick question that came through the chat about the actual current thinking about replicating the action somewhere else or at national level in Kenya. Are you thinking about expanding the successful program across the national context or regional context at the moment? And if so, what do you think could be the elements that would be most important to do so in the most cost-effective way?
Yes, there are plans to scale up this in the country. First of all, the entrepreneurs that we've been working with are not there yet. And these are some of the lessons that we are learning. How long does it take for a woman entrepreneur to be said to be there, you know, where the business has stabilized and they can move on their own? we feel that 3 years is not enough, and so we are working with some of those that we've been working with, adding like 100 more new entrepreneurs, and funds, if funds are available, work in 7 other counties in the country and increase the number of women entrepreneurs in total to about 1,000. The interventions for the entrepreneurs that we are already working with, of course, would focus around market development and more mentorship, while the newer entrepreneurs would have to go through the entire training program. We are also looking at ways of scaling this up in the region, because we feel we've learned enough. We are able to probably work with partners in Tanzania and Rwanda, where we already have an office. But we haven't decided on numbers for the region, but we are clear on the numbers for the national scaling up program. And we will still continue to work to implement both complementary components, where we are building capacity of women, helping them to strengthen their businesses, and lobbying for more support especially from the county governments, to support similar initiatives, because there are resources within the devolved governance that can be used to support the women entrepreneurs. While at the national level, there are commitments that the government made in terms of gender mainstreaming. For example, they prioritize the clean cooking, and we'd like to ensure that we follow up on this, so that the commitments that were made in the documents are actually turned into projects and programs.
Thank you so much, Pia. That was a great answer again. So we are a little bit under or behind the schedule, so we are going to very quickly turn into the low smoke stops project in Sudan. We're aware that the time that has already passed the initial time, so feel free to keep with us. This is also one of the really important and a totally learning space for us. So it'd be great if you can accompany us for the presentation from Sama. So just without delaying it, please, Sama, yours is the floor. Sama, we cannot hear you. Apparently the sound system was solved before. Janina, can we make sure that Sama has the option to talk, or the speakers are open for her, please? I'm afraid we are not listening to Sama. We are not hearing Sama at the moment. I don't know if I guess there are technical problems. We're trying to connect with her and open the channel so that she can talk to us. So apparently the audio is off again. Maybe Janina, can we make sure that that Sama has the audio open to talk, please? Janina, can we make sure that Sama has her voice channel open, please? Because apparently at the moment it is not. I don't see the icon on Sama's name, so apparently the channel is off at the moment, so she cannot talk or communicate with us. Is there any chance we can open the channel for Sabah to communicate, please? So we are encountering some problems here with Sama. Sorry, Sama, the technical complications. Let's see if Janina can. Okay, Janina is working on that. Okay. So meantime, till this is sorted out, just as a general comment, there have been lots of questions from different people. During the webinar, we were able to respond to some of the questions, but not to all of them. So sorry for that in the first place. Please, for those questions which haven't been answered, it'd be great if you can direct the questions to Janina, who can compile the questions and then share the questions with the different speakers. Also, there was a very nice, very interesting recommendation from Mary on whether the speakers could actually have a reflection around what similarities and what differentiate the programs, and what is it that is similar to the rest of the programs, to find kind of regular similar patterns, but also things that different people are doing in the programs as a way to collect different approaches and ways of doing similar programs. There's also been an interesting suggestion or suggestion from Mary on whether the speakers could actually. Hi, now. Sabah, can you hear? Sama, I think we can hear you. Can you talk?
Yes. First, good evening, everybody. I'm happy to be with you in this webinar and to share this experience from Sudan about the low smoke stove project. I believe this is an experience demonstrating working with women for women. First, we want to go quickly on the context of the energy poverty in Sudan. Just to go quickly through these slides, more than 65% of the Sudanese are out of access to electricity, and even they are using the biomass mainly for cooking. That exposed women and children to the hazards of the indoor pollution 100 times higher than the acceptable levels set by the WHO. Looking at to Darfur as the location of this project, the area is suffering from conflict, displacement, and reduced quality of life. More than 95% of people in Darfur use biomass for cooking, and that leads to uncontrolled trees cutting in the area. Moreover, women and girls are responsible for cooking in these areas. That means fishing and cooking takes about 2 to 3 hours daily, and more than 20% of the poor household income. Looking at Sudan business strategy, a strategic business plan, we consider that Women Development Association and community-based organization as key actors in developing and influencing our energy program, because they provide an evidence for inspiration and scaling of the energy program. The low smoke stove project as an idea and a pilot started in 2008 when Practical Action introduced the idea of the Low Smoke Stove project through two Women Development Association in Darfur and Kasserine in Sudan, with the aim to reduce indoor air pollution by replacing the use of wood and charcoal by the use of LPG. This project is co-funded by Carbon Finance, by Carbon Clear, which is a carbon trading company, in addition to OFID and Practical Action, and implemented mainly with the Women Development Association network in Darfur. These projects include different levels and types of partnership with the government, research centers, and most importantly with the private sector. A good example for that is the Nile Petroleum Company, which is the biggest gas supplier in Sudan. The Low Smoke Stove considered as an innovative, sustainable, and expandable model for carbon finance projects that supported by the successful partnership with the private sector. It's the first carbon finance project in Sudan, and it's the first ever LPG carbon credit program globally, considering that the project was developed in politically unstable time in Darfur. It is a winner of the UN for Climate Change Momentum for Change in 2013. What are the main objectives of this project? The main objective is to increase the access to LPG through microfinance system, to raise the awareness on the negative health and environmental impact of using wood and charcoal, reduce the indoor air pollution that affects women and children under 5, also to strengthen the managerial capacity of women associations and networks, to reduce the overall household energy expenditure for those low-income families. Finally, to reduce the pressure decline in the forest in the area, because people are cutting trees in Darfur for wood and charcoal. Trying to explain this in a simple way, the implementation model of this project is that Practical Action through the fund supports the Women Association to establish and manage a revolving fund to purchase the LPG and the stoves through the seed money. Then the Women Association take the responsibility to manage this revolving fund and to establish new association for saving and loans and for revolving fund. The main objective here is to supply the poor household by this LPG in affordable way, by flexible installment, to cover the high initial cost for the purchase of the LPG stoves and canisters. This implementation modality is built on the partnership with the private sector and with other market actors. Looking at the finance modality in a very simple way, there are a lot of details, but at the first point, Carbon Clear, which is the carbon trading company, provide fund to Practical Action. This seed money, together with the management, monitoring, and capacity building support provided by Practical Action to the Women Association. Women Association implementing this project with Practical Action, working to supplying these LPGs, reducing the carbon emission, and issuing monitoring reports. These monitoring reports are verified by the gold standards globally, and when we prove that we reduce the carbon emission, they release the carbon credits back to the project, and the project return it back to the carbon trading company, which is the funder for this project. What did we achieve? We achieved different things at different levels. Basically improved access to clean fuel for more than 12,000 families. We significantly reduced indoor air pollution that reached 92% of the household acknowledged reduction in the pollution at the house level. Pressure on forests reduced, and we have figures for reduction in the use of wood and charcoal. There is monthly saving for these poor households. They're increasing this saving because of the adoption of the LPG. What we also achieved, focusing on gender, that there is a reduction by 2 hours in cooking time. This time saved is used in education, in social activities, and in other income-generating activities for women. It's also there is also a reduction in wood fetching burden. In the past, women in Darfur walk for lengthy journeys to collect the biomass, exposing to physical hazards like injuries, and sometimes it's reached to be sexual violence cases. For most interestingly, that the gender roles even has been changed. The project reports revealed that more than 55% of men started to participate in tea making, and 10% participating in food preparation, starting from 0 in the past. This is great achievement in changing the gender role. Also, in the market, at the market level, there is 2 new technologies introduced by this project. The lighter and smaller LPG, which is 6 kilogram, which is easy to move and to carry for women, especially the pastoralists who are moving from area to area, which is cheaper to be filled. In addition to the Kisra plate stove, which is the specific stove used for making Kisra, which is a local food here in Sudan. These projects influence the private sector to produce these new technologies to respond to the great demand created by this project. Also at the institutional level, the project linked women development network with the LPG companies and financial institutions like banks, forming saving and loans groups, where initial cost is a major barrier to access of poor to clean fuel technologies. It's also, and this is very important, enabled building the capacity of Women Development Association to manage the LPG revolving fund independently. The repayment collection is very high. There is skills in place now for monitoring and computer skills, business management, entrepreneurship, and other complementary projects. Empowering women and encouraging women entrepreneurship project availed opportunity for 30 women to manage refilling centers in Darfur. I could say that we don't have refilling centers for women in the capital city here in Khartoum. That is why this is considered at the level of gender achievements. This is really great because women started this business. This improved the supply, empower women, source of income, and life-changing experience for those women. Also, the Saving and Loans Association plays a great role in this because they provide like source of finance for women to start different type of investment in clean energy and other sectors like education and agriculture. The projects also facilitated the establishment of 60 new community-based organizations for income-generating activities. You can see the women celebrating their achievement and success. Another dimension is that the awareness package of this project include and discuss issues like FGM and early marriage, which are harmful practice endanger women and girls in Darfur and in Sudan as general. What are the challenge? What are the challenge for this project? I could say that the project and the experience with Women Development Association and the private sector have great flexibility and coping mechanism for what is happening in the market and the economic situation in Sudan, because the main challenges are the higher cost of emission reduction, which require high level of monitoring and verification methods and type of surveys. Another challenge is the LPG price increase. There is a continuous increase in the LPG price in Sudan. What is good is actually that the Women Development Association now have long-term contracts and memorandum of understanding with the private sector companies. What prevents them from the sudden increase in the prices, because they have priority in receiving filling for the LPGs. They can keep the price increasing slightly, and there's a great flexibility in this regarding this experience. Some households are actually still using charcoal and wood in a limited level, because this is for cultural reason, like believing that tasty food are cooked in wood and charcoal. The supply is irregular and insufficient sometimes. And also here, the long-term partnership with the private sector plays great role in this, ensures the supply, continuous supply for women association, in addition to the refilling centers in place that provide a good stock for the community. The decline of the revolving fund associated with the devaluation of the local currency is also one of these challenges. Finally, the exit strategy. The exit strategy of this project is built on the idea that the project will be handed over to the Women Development Association after 3 years from now, starting from July 2018. That will be associated with capacity building for these women associations, in addition to development in the partnership and the relationships supporting these projects at the private sector level, that also include the participatory market development systems, which this approach has been applied in these projects, and we will continue to work toward improving the market for this project. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sama. We've been very happy to finally have your presentation going on. So, and the technical problems didn't finally avoid us from listening to your very, very important and very interesting presentation. So thank you so much for the time and for the patience.
Thank you.
When technology doesn't always help, right? So thanks so much. It's been a very, very nice presentation, Sama. I don't think we're going to have time for more questions. We've already gone through approximately 2 hours 20 minutes. I don't think we are going to have time for specific questions on your presentation. But as I said before, it'd be great if the different audience people, attendees, can send your questions right into the emails from the presenters or into Janina's email inbox, so that can be compiled and be shared across the different speakers to be answered after. Yes, I guess time is kind of pressuring us at the moment, but this is going to be recorded and shared with you guys once we are finished. I think as the 4 presentations have been very, very important, very interesting. They've brought like a very quick reading of how things are being done during the last 5 years, approximately, as an average per program. Some of the programs have specifically talked about how complicated the beginning was in terms of the engagement of women in like in decision-making positions or a distribution or retailer positions. So one of the main learnings that I'm getting from the presentation is that these kind of programs take long time. So changes don't happen in one day. They require a patient capital. They require patient activities, actions that focus mainly on the development of the skills, the capacities, but nevertheless also the development of a thriving market that can and that can absorb the demand, the supply that is provided by the different manufacturers, the different entrepreneurs, but also equally it requires the time and skills to provide the skills, the sufficient skills and capacities, and to empower, specifically empower the women to actually jump into the space and create the difference that can be transformative for the women in the cookstoves market. So that's kind of a very important point that I want to recall after this webinar. A second one is, and I think it's been very nice to see the big range of a variety of funding mechanisms or financing mechanisms. So we've been talking about the results-based finance in Nepal, a mix or a hybrid approach in Latin America between results-based finance, but also microcredits coming from cooperatives that have been part of the program. Also, we've been going through the village saving and loan associations or the revolving funds in Sudan and Kenya, with like different ways of capitalize and dynamize the market, so that women and men can access loans and capital to launch their own entrepreneurship. So different approaches, different perspectives and different processes that have been led to the sales of thousands of cookstoves and different appliances in the different markets. It's been also very interesting to see how the different programs not only just tackle the preparation and the skills and capacity for entrepreneurs and retailers and distributors, but nevertheless also the way the programs tackle the development of the market. So how the different markets which were very immature, very underdeveloped in the beginning, have been starting to take off. And although there are some adversities and some problems and obstacles that have been highlighted by all the speakers, the markets are actually moving in the right direction. So with different ways of stimulating demand, which is difficult sometimes, but it is key in these kind of programs, while also providing the skills, capacities, but also working with providing guarantees and quality assurance for the companies that supply the appliances, the markets can move forward. But they need finance and they need policy advocacy. We've seen some of the efforts behind the advocacy. In the case of Sudan or Kenya, they are very clear, and they're being done at national, but also specifically in the case of Kenya, it's done at international level. And this is where we also feel it lies the difference between changing or mainstreaming policies across national governments, or going even beyond and trying to replicate and advocate and influence decision makers, in order for them to understand what we understand already, what we got from this work, from this webinar today, or what we are learning from the practices and from the pilots that we are implementing at the moment. So I think there is a lot of learning included in this webinar. I'm really, really happy to have you, the 5 of you, as speakers today. It's been really constructive, really interesting to listen to you all. As I said before, any additional question that hasn't been answered today, please send it to us, to Janina or to myself, or to the different speakers. The main interest of the main goal of this webinar was to actually not only just presenting what has or currently is being done in the space, but rather to get you in touch with the specific people you have to talk to whenever you have specific questions that can be quickly answered by your peers or your colleagues in other offices. So don't hesitate in contacting us whenever you have similar questions to be answered, or additional questions that have to be answered in order to better design a program, or to integrate the gender perspective or approaches, or the markets approaches into new programs, new ideas, new thoughts in country offices. I think it's been super productive. Thank you again, the 5 speakers, for being with us today. I really thank you, the attendees, for coming. It's been great, and we had like a high level of participation. So again, thank you so much for the time today. We will disseminate the records or the video again across different offices. I will make sure that the link is reaching out to you. Please make all the questions that you feel are pertinent and write directly or contact directly your colleagues. So it's been great, a great pleasure to have you today, and we hope you join us in the coming 2 webinars that are upcoming, probably coming during the coming couple of months. So we will keep you updated and wish you a great day. So thank you so much for your attendance, and see you soon.